on our social update today, I have a chat to somebody who is very familiar to the South African landscape, first as the president of South African Rugby, but also over the last nearly, 30 years, he's been the CEO of Labat Africa, which is listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange for nearly 22 years now. Of course, I'm talking about Rooyen van Rooyen. You can see that man hasn't changed or aged a day in his life. Rooyen, thank you very much for joining us here on our social update.
Good day, Sam, and thank you very much for having me.
Now, Rooyen, obviously you're a leader in this space. Like all South Africans, you would have watched the president's speech on the 15th of September. It was a speech about us moving from level 2 to level 1. In that conversation, he talked about kickstarting the economy. And as somebody who has mandate running businesses, who's been involved in employment, creating opportunities, how do we as South Africans, as the world, get back into a mindset after being in lockdown for so long? How do we kickstart the economy?
Sam, it's very interesting that you say that even prior to lockdown, in the State of the Nation address and subsequently the budget speech by Finance Minister Tito Mboweni, a lot of focus have been put on the new economy. And recently I have seen some statistics coming out that the agricultural sector has been the sector that has been least affected by the continuous lockdown as a result of COVID-19. So when we look at this new economy and how do we kickstart that economy, it's going to be slightly different. It's going to be focusing on the agricultural side, on the agro-processing. And that has always been the breadbasket of South African and to a larger extent SADC economy throughout Africa as well. So yes, the kickstart of that economy is going to be focusing mainly on the agricultural side, and where Labat entered the space in September last year was, of course, the cannabis side of the agricultural sector, which a lot of the provincial premiers, the Minister of Finance, and indeed the President have highlighted that would be something that a lot of focus must be given to. And we've seen it now with the continuous lockdown, that the South African government has accelerated the entire legislative process when it comes to cannabis in South Africa.
But can cannabis, I know the media reports, we've seen so much within the Canadian and within Canada, massive companies on their stock exchanges doing phenomenally well. Can cannabis and hemp really play a critical part in the economy? Can it bring in those numbers towards the fiscus? Can it create job opportunities?
Sam, you know what has happened in Lesotho, who was at the forefront of opening the whole cannabis legislation from an international perspective. And I think we need to clarify this very clearly in order to take advantage of what you've just said. Can it create the numbers? Can it create the jobs? Can it bring in the financial resources that we need to do it? I think it's very important for us to understand, because you see, when people talk about cannabis, it immediately goes to the negative connotation of dagga-rook, so you become now a dagga dealer, So when we look at cannabis has got two components in it. It's got obviously the high THC component in it, and that is your marijuana as we know it, that contained the high THC. That's what make you high. That contained the active ingredient. That focus for us is pure on pharmaceutical and medicinal purposes. Then on the other hand, you get the hemp, the other family of the cannabis, which is hemp. There you're talking about more CBD, healthcare related supplements, as well as industrial. Let me give you an example, just to further illustrate the issue that we have in terms of job creation. The motor vehicle industry in South Africa uses between 5 and 6 billion rand a year of hemp plastic. That is for your dashboards, for your side panels, for all the things that look like plastic in your car. It's actually hemp. Sam, you're too young to understand, but in the old days, we had to cover our dashboards with some piece of cloth, otherwise it'll crack because it was pure plastic.
Because my uncle's car cracked, my father's car cracked. Thanks
100%.
for the by the way.
So now they don't, because they make it out of hemp plastic. But if I tell you that entire 6 billion rand a year, as estimated by the Department of Trade and Industry per annum, is imported.
Sure.
Yet we're sitting with all the land and all the infrastructure in South Africa to grow our own hemp and create the various industries. And plastic is just one industry. You know, you've got pellets, you've got hempcrete, you've got feedstock. There is hundreds and hundreds of products. So to say whether this can create jobs or will it be able to create jobs? Let's take the sugar industry recently, and the only reason why I'm using that as an example. Recently, Eula Tonga announced that it's shutting down 1 or 2 of its sugar mills in KwaZulu-Natal. The result of that is because of you can import sugar from Brazil at 1/10 of the price. It's the same route that we're going with sugar than what we have with the textile with the textile industry in the past. That closure of that one sugar mill put out close to 300 subsistence farmers out of job because they were growing sugarcane. Now, if there's no mill, there is no sugarcane that they can plant. The advantage with replacing that with hemp, sugarcane you can only have 1 crop per year. Hemp you can have up to 3 crops per year. And we've done a calculation that on 1 hectare of land, if you plant hemp, you would get 3 to 4 full-time jobs per hectare. Now, if we take what the government is saying, that they will make the land available to people, and these are all not only fertile land, because remember, cannabis, hemp is a wheat, so it'll grow anywhere. So you can use rehabilitated mining land to plant it. And you can create industry around that particular area. But here comes the problem, Sam. All well and good. But just like the sugar farmers, if there's no sugar mill, they cannot farm sugarcane. You know that in South Africa, with all the hemp permits that has been issued, there's not 1 hemp processing facility in South Africa, not 1. So Labat is coming forward and say, together with institutions like the PIC and local development organizations and the Department of Agriculture, if we to succeed in this whole quest for creating jobs and accelerating this new economy, we have to have a place, like in the old days, that the Afrikaner farmers took their crops and they took it to a co-op, to a coöperatie. We need to establish that coöperatie, and that coöperatie will process it, they will sell it, they will assist with implementation, they will help with funding of these small-scale farmers. That is what you need to do. And the advantage of that, you don't have to bring it to Johannesburg. You can take it to the rural areas, right on the edge of the rural areas, and you have a processing facility.
Because Brian, that's part of your mission is to move it into those rural facilities.
Of course.
You've earmarked the Eastern Cape, haven't you?
Yes, we have. Eastern Cape, Northern Cape, and KwaZulu-Natal. You know, the Northern Cape primarily because I'm from the Northern Cape, so it is very dear to my heart. And there's a lot of rehabilitation land that the Beers has left unused. And we could very quickly move into those particular areas and plant hemp. KwaZulu-Natal is another one. KwaZulu-Natal is because of all the sugar farmers that were there. Eastern Cape, on the other hand, is that most of your current hemp licenses, permits that has been issued, is in the Eastern Cape. Now you ask yourself, with all those hemp permits that has been issued, what are they using it for? Oh, some people using it for feedstock, but some people will be using it for the illicit trade of marijuana, you know, because that's the only other thing that you can do with it if you can't use it in an industrial setup. So yes, we've targeted, we actually want to put up a facility, a processing facility in each of the 9 provinces, because that will stimulate the economy in South Africa.
Well, I mean, everybody is focused around the economy at the moment, and you are in the market raising funds at the moment. You are speaking to various stakeholders. How is that process going? I know that you've been met with a lot of enthusiasm. You've also stated in your own statement that there is a will from government to make sure that these opportunities to kickstart the economy, that they exist. But just from your own interaction as the CEO of Labat, trying to get the funds together, to get the stakeholders, to get those co-op agreements, what has the environment been like?
The environment has been very challenging. I tell you why, Sam. One of the major issues in South Africa is that it is a very young industry at the moment, and people are skeptical about it. Needless to say that the legislation hasn't been refined yet. So everybody thought that they could get into cannabis and you'll be able to sell it on the street at high values. You are not allowed to sell any cannabis in South Africa for commercial purposes in South Africa. That's regardless of what the Constitutional Court ruled, that you can grow it in your house and you can smoke it and all that, but you cannot sell it. So it's a relatively young industry. The legislation hasn't been that well refined, although I'm saying that government is doing their best. I mean, they have now moved hemp from a Schedule 6 to a Schedule 4 drug, and that's moving over to the Department of Agriculture, because as we speak today, cannabis is still a Schedule 7 drug under the Narcotics Act, which makes it illegal to trade in South Africa in all aspects, you know, whether it's medicinal or whatever. The only thing that you can do with cannabis in South Africa at the moment, you can plant, grow, and export it. That's it. You can't process it in the country. So yes, it has been challenging in terms of the capital raise. We've had some very good interactions with a number of funds and people that are interested. We've recently been approached by an international company. You see, the collapse of the cannabis in the Canadian market is the Canadian market was focused on Lesotho, and Lesotho's focus with the Canadians was primarily almost 100% focused on the recreational market, and that was on the back that the American market will open because Canada is not big enough to consume the cannabis that we will be taking from Africa. But the American market hasn't opened for recreation. Well, it hasn't opened for any other purpose, including recreational yet. You can sell cannabis in between the states, but you can't sell it outside of the federal government or bring it in. So I think the it's going to take a bit of time. uh, what is very exciting for me that I've seen in the last 2-3 months during lockdown, Sam, is the interest of the man in the street to get involved in the cannabis business in South Africa. We have, in the last 60 days, had about 59 to 60 individuals in the country subscribing for shares in Labat, because we've given them, those people, the shares at 50 cents a share as part of our BE plan. You know, we've got people taking up 1,000 shares, other people taking up 5,000, 7,000, 100,000, 25,000, you know. So people become part of a listed entity, because that's the only time that you can secure. I don't want people to go to a broker or to whatever. We've made it so simple. The forms are available on our website. You can fill in the form. You can apply for 500 shares, and we'll issue your 500 shares. So that has been very exciting. And that has been important for us, because you see, the whole issue about cannabis has got that negative connotation from where you and me come from. You know, it's a dagarok thing, you know, and we need to change that mindset and say it is not necessary that. And we've taken a view that we will not go into recreational cannabis in the South African market.
With the environment being challenging, using your own words, can you project, if you had to get the regulatory aspect in order, if you were able to get the finance aspects, the capital raising aspects in order, what is your projections in terms of having a processing plant in at least as a pilot project in one of those provinces? Do you have a timeline estimate?
3 months. 3 months from now. That's what we're targeting, bearing in mind that we have gone through the whole value chain of the cannabis business. So we've gone from seed to shelf. And we've got a 2.5 billion rand offtake agreement with an international company. So from our perspective, where we're sitting right now, we are negotiating with the development bank, the BRICS Bank, to get one of the processing facilities here within the next 2 months, and we'll have our first pilot up in the next 3 months.
Final question from me, because we're running out of time. Labat Africa, obviously, if anybody knows you, they know that you're a very ambitious man. You guys are also listing on the NASDAQ and in Europe. How's that process going at the moment?
Well, we simultaneously, we thought we will first set up everything in South Africa, and then we will do the listing on the NASDAQ. But given the challenges that the Canadians had with the American market and the American market not opening, we've put it on hold, but we're working simultaneously with what we're doing in South Africa. So as soon as that happens, we will then, from a pharmaceutical point of view, proceed with our listing on the NASDAQ in the US.
I said it was final question, but as you spoke, I wanted to ask you, talk to me about the numbers quickly. How many jobs can cannabis create? How many industries can impact? In terms of your research, what is the numbers told you very quickly?
Numbers very quickly, just on our side, we're talking about in the next 3 years, close to 2 million jobs, just ours from Labat. Not the industry, we're talking Labat. Industries, there are thousands. I've talked about the plastic industry. Yeah. There's the hemp industry, there's the feeds industry, there's the oil industry, there's the pellet industry. We've been approached by an Australian company who make pellets out of hemp. There is your plastics industry. Somebody are looking at making these masks. Here, I've got a mask that I'm using, and this mask is made out of hemp. So you've got all those opportunities in industries. So that's why it's important to take the processing facility to the people, to the rural areas, so that you can create jobs and you can stop this urbanization of everybody trying to come to Johannesburg or the center of Johannesburg. You know, we need to create that industry within the communities that our people live.
And if we want to find out more, where can we go?
You can go on to, we send some stuff regularly, and we're not the only people. Recently, I've seen a lot of articles coming from the Cape with people like Afriplex and people like that has been working on the whole cannabis. On our website, we try to put as much as possible the new legislation, the progress. They can go onto our website. They can contact us. I've said that we're going to proceed with what we do as a business because we see the opportunity, but we're not the only ones. We're not the only ones. The only advantage that we've got right now, we've got a bit of a head start. We're one of, if not the only listed entity in Africa in cannabis.
So on that note, we can leave it there. Brian van Rooyen, thank you very much, CEO of Labat Africa, talking to us about your plans to bring cannabis into the country and to grow the industry, but also at the same time to provide job opportunities and to kickstart the economy.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, sir.
For more stories like these, go to www.social-tv.co.za. Subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on our social mediums.